Let's be honest, most people don't actually study. They just pretend to. They sit there for hours, highlighting useless notes, rereading the same pages, and convincing themselves they're being productive. But deep down, they know the truth. Their brain isn't learning. It's just tired. Because the real problem isn't how many hours you study. It's how your brain reacts during those hours. See, your brain isn't built to stay focused for long stretches. It's not a machine. It's a survival tool. It evolved to save energy, not to waste it. So when you force yourself to study for 5, 6, or 8 hours straight, your brain quietly starts shutting off. You're not learning faster. You're literally training your mind to ignore information. But what if I told you that by cutting your study time down to just 2 hours a day, you could hack your brain's learning cycle? Not by working harder, but by using the exact rhythm your brain was designed to follow. This isn't one of those lazy, study less, achieve more slogans. This is psychological warfare against your own brain's resistance, because your brain is always playing defense. It filters, it forgets, it rejects new data unless you trick it. This 2-hour study method is built around that trick. It doesn't fight your brain, it uses it. It breaks your studying into a structure that keeps your mind addicted to progress, obsessed with completion, and desperate for closure. In other words, it makes your brain crave studying, the same way it craves checking notifications or finishing a video. Think of your brain like a child. It doesn't care about your goals, your grades, or your ambitions. It only cares about pleasure and pain. Every time you study the wrong way, your brain links studying with pain. Every time you study the right way, in short, precise, and controlled bursts, your brain releases dopamine. And that's the moment you stop forcing yourself to study and start wanting to. Because here's the truth, most students will never understand. You don't need more time to study. You need to make your brain hungry to learn. Once you do that, 2 hours can feel like 10. Your focus becomes sharper, your memory locks in deeper, and your brain starts working for you instead of against you. So in this video, I'll show you how to use this 2-hour study method to trick your brain into learning faster, to manipulate it into becoming your biggest weapon. You'll stop wasting energy pretending to be productive and start learning like the top 1% of students who seem to just get it. Because it's not intelligence that separates them from you, it's strategy. And after today, you'll have that strategy. 1. The first 20 minutes. The mental switch phase. Here's the harsh truth. Your brain doesn't start learning the moment you open your books. It starts resisting. That resistance, that boredom, that restlessness is your mind's survival instinct trying to protect its energy. So, the first 20 minutes of your study session are not about learning. They're about convincing your brain to obey you. In this phase, you're not trying to understand, you're trying to activate. Your only goal is to trigger your brain's focus mode. That means no deep note-taking, no multitasking, no checking messages, just exposure. You read or watch material with low pressure. You skim, you highlight, you observe, and you let curiosity build. Think of it like warming up an engine. The car doesn't go full speed right away. It heats up, the oil circulates, and then it becomes powerful. Most students burn out in this phase because they expect results too early. You're smarter than that. You understand that the first 20 minutes aren't about memorizing. They're about conditioning your brain to trust the process. Because once your brain realizes the task is not painful, it starts craving the reward. 2. The next 60 minutes. The focused explosion phase. This is the core of the method. The power hour that manipulates your brain into maximum absorption. Here's what happens neurologically. After about 20 minutes of mild engagement, your brain's dopamine circuits activate. It starts rewarding you for progress. That's your cue. You dive deep, but not chaotically. You don't jump between topics. You take one concept, one subject, one chapter, and you break it into micro-targets. Each micro-target gives your brain a hit of achievement, small wins that flood your system with dopamine, which keeps your focus locked. You're not studying math. You're conquering this formula. You're not learning history. You're decoding this one event. This micro-commitment method keeps your brain trapped in a loop of momentum. It can't stop because it constantly expects the next reward. During this hour, you should feel pressure, but not stress. Pressure creates focus. Stress creates shutdown. And the secret is to dance between the two. Tight enough to stay alert, loose enough to stay calm. Most people never enter this zone because they never stay consistent long enough for their brain to reach it. But when you do, something magical happens. Time disappears. You forget your phone. You forget the clock. Your mind becomes addicted to clarity. That's when learning stops being effort and becomes instinct. 3. The final 40 minutes. The retention lock phase. Now that your brain is fully active, this is where most people mess up. They just stop. They close the book and move on. And that's why they forget everything within a day. But not you. You're going to use the retention lock phase, the secret to making your brain seal information into long-term memory. Here's how it works. In this final stretch, you switch from input to output. You don't just read, you teach yourself. You talk out loud. Summarize what you learned. Explain it like you're teaching a child. Why? Because when you explain something in your own words, your brain has to rebuild the information, and that rewiring creates a permanent imprint. Think of it like printing a document on your mind's hard drive. The ink doesn't dry when you read, it dries when you explain. So, for the last 40 minutes, you're doing brain weightlifting. You're forcing your neurons to recall, to connect, to repeat, which makes forgetting nearly impossible. And here's the dark trick. If you end your session at the peak of mental clarity, your brain stays in learning mode for hours afterward. You'll find yourself thinking about what you studied while walking, eating, even scrolling. That's the afterburn effect. Your brain continues digesting information subconsciously. So, by the time you study again tomorrow, you're not starting from zero. You're continuing from a place of unconscious mastery. 4. The psychological weapon, the end craving. Principle. Here's the final manipulation. Never study until exhaustion. Always stop while your brain still wants more. This creates what I call the end craving effect. Your brain stays hungry. See? The mind hates unfinished business. When you stop while still interested, your brain keeps replaying the information in the background, trying to complete the loop. It's the same mechanism that makes you binge-watch a show or scroll endlessly. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. By ending your 2-hour study session right before satisfaction, you weaponize that same psychological loop. Your brain becomes obsessed with your study material. It will think about it involuntarily, during a shower, a walk, even while you're supposed to relax. And that's exactly what we want, to make learning haunt you. Because when your brain can't stop thinking about what you studied, learning becomes effortless. 5. The loop of domination. How it compounds over time. Now imagine doing this every day. Not for 8 hours, not for 5, just 2 hours of complete control. Your brain begins to associate studying with pleasure, not pain. It starts craving the focus zone, the dopamine rush, the sense of mastery. And here's where the compounding starts. Each session builds neural pathways that reinforce learning. Each mental switch, each focused explosion, each retention lock, they multiply your memory capacity exponentially. Within weeks, your recall sharpens, your focus becomes addictive, and you start outperforming people who study twice as long, because they're fighting their brain while you're hacking it. So, now that you know the truth, that studying for 8 hours a day is actually ruining your focus, while just 2 hours can rewire your brain, here's the real question. Will you actually use this method? or keep lying to yourself that tomorrow you'll finally start. Because let's be honest, most people watching this will nod, agree, and then scroll away to another productivity hack. But a few, the rare few, will actually test this. And those few are the ones who'll start noticing something strange. They'll remember things faster, they'll feel smarter, and they'll realize that everyone else is still stuck in the cycle of study more, remember less. If you're one of those rare ones, I want you to comment below. 2 hours, 100% focus. That's it. It'll be our little signal, a way to separate the thinkers from the pretenders. And just for fun, tell me in the comments, if your brain was a person, would it be your best friend or your worst enemy right now? Let's see how many of you are actually brave enough to take control of it. Because remember, your brain can be your greatest ally or your smartest excuse. You choose.